Live stream update settings for YouTube. Start video transmission. We are good to go. Welcome, everybody listening live or afterward to Gab Hominem. This is another episode of Gab Hominem, first episode of 2022, and I'm very happy to be back at it. And I'm actually starting this year with another really cool voice actor, Jacob Wilson. Thank you for joining me today.
You jest.
Jess,
Thank you for having me on.
do I look like Jared Leto?
I'd hope not. I wouldn't want you to be Jared. I wouldn't want you to be Jared Leto.
Yeah, it's. I have not met Jared, thankfully, and I don't know. I feel like it would have been the scariest thing to have seen because I was down in Los Angeles like a month ago to meet up with another podcasting friend of mine. And the whole time I'm down there, I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then I keep forgetting, there's a lot of people that live in LA that just casually go everywhere, right? A lot of celebrities.
Yeah.
And it would have been an incredibly terrifying experience to actually meet Jared Leto if he's around there.
He would give you a used condom or something.
I wouldn't doubt it. But yes, it's another episode of Gab Hominem where we come to listen to people who work in whatever particular field of entertainment, whether it's, as we're doing today, voice acting and casting directing, or other fields like directing, animation, music, could even be YouTubing, whatever the case it could be. We're here to learn from people's experiences, and if we're trying to chase those same careers for ourselves, hopefully remember their experiences that we listen to as sort of a maybe not so much an expectation of what to expect from the industry, but sort of like something that could happen and what ways did and did not work. You know, just sort of the general learning of just trying to do things better, and it can even apply to general life lessons as well. And
I get you.
Yeah, and for me, that was kind of one of the big things that I got talking with our first ever guest, Chris Ayers and Crystal Laporte. And you know, when the news of Chris, when the news of Chris came that he passed, it was an incredible
hard
surprise.
day for a lot of us.
Yeah. So he's part of the
Say
reason
all of
why
us,
I
honestly,
still
it was a hard day.
yeah, he's part of the reason why I still do this show. And so to that effect, how long have you been at it, the voice acting, the casting directing?
I've been in voice acting for about 4 years. I started acting when I was in middle school. I always wanted to be like on Disney shows and stuff like that. Then I realized that might not be as possible for my position, but I still wanted to act. And when I was in high school, I got into anime and I watched a couple anime. It was Attack on Titan, Oran High School Host Club. I think the other one was Black Butler. Which was an interesting first 3 anime, I must admit.
I'll bet. Oran, and I remember first watching Oran, and I went, "This is fucking like."
I didn't know I was bisexual then. I have no idea.
I was, and to some extent, still am one of those like, I guess, sort of hyper masculine type of straight white guys. But even I look at Oran, and I'm like, this shit is fucking wild, and I love it.
I mean, a lot of people say it's like the one shoujo anime that all guys can love. Also,
yeah, I believe it. Oh man. He says 1 sec. Let me make sure I still have things set up. These people are going. Oh yeah, I should probably make sure people know that we're going.
I made a tweet myself, and okay, I'm back. My sister was asking me if I'm still going to be here for dinner, and the answer to that is yes.
Fair enough. It's it's so I think you said you're Midwest, I think.
I live in Texas. I live in Coppell, but it's actually that's leading to a couple things actually. So I watched those anime, and before each of those was the name Funimation. And I looked at Funimation, and I thought, that's like that'd be a company based in like some bigger city. No, it was like 15 minutes from my house. And all the voice actors are local to this area. So they got me thinking, hey, that's something that I could do.
Ooh.
So I just got started on that path, and that's ultimately like that was the reason I got in. Obviously, my goals, I've added more goals and evolved over time, but that's the reason I got into this in the first place was that company and the possibility that I could like do this stuff from where I am. That I'm lucky enough to be in this area that now a lot of people are moving to. I keep seeing my friends talking about how they wanted to move to Dallas, and it's like, yes, come closer. We have cookies, and our rent is not exorbitant.
uh,
L.A. I feel for people in L.A.
yeah, because I had gone there uh, back in December to meet with another podcasting friend of mine from the Lorecast, and that was a fun trip because I live in
Mhm.
Sacramento, California, which is between. If you just go straight drive, no stops, it's about 6 to 6.5 hours. Now that traffic is going again, um,
Uh-huh.
and for me. I know a lot of people can't handle long drives, but I'm perfectly fine with it. I find it very relaxing. But
Mhm.
once you get into LA, it's it is a huge place. It's
It was a 6-hour drive, and 5 of those was just in L.A.
yeah. No, I believe it because it is a very huge place, and if you're especially if you're visiting like two places and they all happen to, or sorry, like three places and they all happen to be in different parts of LA, yeah, you're gonna very easily spend 4 or 5 hours just on the road, and that depends on what highway you're going to. Some of them get worse than others.
I believe it. I mean, here in Texas, it's constant construction. There is hardly a moment where some major road is not experiencing some type of construction. And at some point, you just got to be like, okay, everything should be done by now. What is going on?
It's constant road work over here too in Cal, or at least in the Central Valley of California. There's the highways around Sacramento are constantly under construction for something. Like there's this bridge a little bit south of where I live. It's like this overpass by this golf course, and for the last like year and a half, 2 years, it has been undergoing construction. Setting up a giant hill and then building the road on top of that. Half the lanes closed, and I'm going, what the hell is going? This is congesting traffic more than it's helping, and this better be
Yeah,
done soon. Still being worked on. What the hell?
I don't know. I think that it comes from like one of my friends said this that if they had to, if they shut down the road entirely, then well, that would be bad, and people wouldn't want that to happen. So they have to do it like lane by lane. But
Oh.
because of that, by the time they get done with a lane, they have to work on the old one. So it's just some sort of sick cycle.
Yeah, I remember because to get to LA, there's two ways to get to LA or Sacramento from each other. It's you can either take Highway 99 or you can go
Mhm.
down I-5. 99 is the one where there's a lot of like actual cities and such along the highway. So
Yeah.
it's likely you'll be spending more time on the road because of all the commuters that are going in and out of those cities. I-5, there is maybe three little towns or rest like actual like communities around the rest stops
Yeah.
between Sacramento and LA, or at least between Sacramento and the Grapevine, which is the big mountain with one of the steepest hills in the country to go over by car.
I heard it through that.
You heard it
The
through it?
grapevine. Like through the grapevine.
Heard it through it?
Heard it through the grapevine.
Oh, oh, damn
Oh,
it!
God.
Damn it! Yeah, that went right over my head, and oh my god. But yeah,
It went
it's
over like an overpass.
but yeah, the Grapevine is one of the steepest inclines and declines to go through on the valley side of the hill. And it's like you
Mm.
get just going up the Grapevine going to LA. There's a sign right at the bottom of the hill that says, "Don't overheat your engine. Turn off your AC."
That, that, I heard this before, but rules and signs only exist because they have to exist. So that's happened so much that someone deemed it necessary that a billboard be put there.
I don't know how
But
long it's
also,
been there,
that is
so.
just that's just cruel, though. I understand that like you don't want your engine to overheat, but also knowing how LA can get, you're gonna be
Mhm.
stuck in traffic with no AC. Like, you ever notice that when your car is moving, it's like the air is fine, but when your car is still, it just gets stuffy no matter how high the AC is?
I don't think I've noticed that. I haven't had a whole lot of situations where I've been stuck in standstill traffic, so I can't
Lucky
really say I
you.
know. I don't
Anytime I
know.
go into Dallas, that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably just a Sacramento thing, in that traffic stands still, or it doesn't really stand still unless a major accident has happened, and that doesn't happen often. For the most part, it just gets congested around a couple of very specific points, and it happens regularly around those points. That's about it.
Well, Texas people, they can't drive. So accidents happen all the time.
The amount of times that I scream at other California drivers because of the way they do things, but I don't see a lot of Texas drivers around here nowadays.
You know, it's funny. I used to say that Texas drivers were the worst drivers,
Mhm.
but I've established that everywhere has the worst.
Yeah, so some of them have their own, I guess, quirks.
Texas just has the craziest highway system
Mm. I don't know. I have
because the
not been to
roads
Texas.
the roads were designed on a dare and a beer, and maybe a prayer,
Oh
and maybe a
man.
couple more beers.
Yeah, I don't know. I might be taking a trip to Texas later this year, because I have
Oh,
a little bit of family that lives down there. I think in the San Antonio area. I don't know.
San Antonio, that's a wonderful place.
Yeah,
Remember the Alamo and visit the Riverwalk.
I'm gonna have to the Riverwalk. I have not heard of. I'm gonna have to make it a point to visit the Alamo, at least to say I have done so. But
It's
the Riverwalk, I don't think I've heard of that.
like, this is where all those men died. You know, I once heard a joke about the Alamo. But you will be the famed Davy Crockett who defended the Alamo. I will be the man no one remembers because he lived. And it's like, yeah, great. Wait, what? That is like, that's just the whole story is a sad thing. Sorry, I didn't mean for this to turn into a Texas history lesson.
Nah, it's all right. I mean, I'm still here ranting on about California drivers, and I'm just like, oh,
Did
right.
California ever have a class that was dedicated to California history?
Not that I recall. I graduated in 2010 though, so if they do
I had
now,
a
I don't know.
couple of Texas history classes.
Really.
Yeah, we had a couple of Texas history classes
That's hilarious.
we we must know it.
Oh man. So yeah, I do understand that there's actually quite a lot of voice actors that live in the Texas area. Um, like
Mhm.
Crystal and Chris were both in the Texas area, and I believe Crystal is actually, last I remember, a criminal lawyer in Houston.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
She's a voice actor by day and a lawyer by night. Or probably both during the day because that's how the schedules work.
Well, I think it goes the other way, because I think the being a criminal lawyer is more the actual like day job. In
I
fact,
know, but saying you're a criminal lawyer by night makes you sound like Daredevil.
okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I do actually remember, because that is kind of one thing that she brought up, is that it's actually very rare to see voice actors who are financially successful off of voice acting alone. A lot of them you'll see like
Mhm.
have a day job on the side, or have some other means of income, like
Yeah,
especially if they're living with other people.
especially if you live in LA.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Like those big voice actors who you see they're always getting roles. Thing about voice acting, especially character work, it's commercials that make you the money.
Yeah,
And like
I
if you voice like more commercials and stuff, then you could probably like just work off of that. But if you are doing mostly character work, it doesn't pay us substantially,
hmm
and it's a lot less consistent.
It was one of the things. One of the first ever voice acting coach that I ever had was this guy named Reed Rudy. If you ever heard of him.
I have not.
No, okay. So he's actually a really cool guy. He did a lot of like television acting and such a number of decades back. In fact, one of my
Mhm.
favorite things that I like to refer to him as, he had a 35 episode stint on Days of Our Lives. And
That's beautiful.
I remember during he had a 6 week course that I was a part of, and I remember asking him, I was like, so what was your experience like in one of the most well known like soaps that have ever existed? And he was like, oh, it was the most fun that I've ever had. If they ever asked me back, I would say yes in a heartbeat. And I'm like, damn, that must have been amazing.
I'm gonna come back as someone's evil twin.
But he was pretty cool, and I guess he does a lot of commercial work nowadays. And like one of the things that one of the first things you'll notice is like on his webpage or wherever you find him, he does a lot of voice work for the NFL.
Yeah, that's something that surprises me. Like some of the people I know, it's like, oh, I've most definitely heard you on TV.
Yeah, and he was
But like you were trying to sell me chocolate bars.
yeah, it was really cool to hear about that. And I back in June, this was right as California had first lifted the I think it was right when they first lifted the mask mandate, right? I was down in LA for a
Uh-huh.
week long vacation because it was the first time I ever had a paid vacation. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm doing it. And I decided to center it around a monthly like voiceover workout that he had out of his home studio, and there was like 4 or 5 other voice actors there, all of them for
Uh-huh.
things like audiobooks, commercials, and I remember Reed even once said, I don't remember if it was during the course or this workout, that commercial work is where all the money is.
Yeah.
Because it was like, what did I think Chris said had said, you're paid in character acting or character voicing, you're paid for the recording job itself, but there's no
Mhm.
like royalties. There's no
Yeah.
like I guess there's no like real commission work. I guess sort of in that regard, at least not
Yeah, you're
typically
kind of
legally.
especially if you're in a state like Texas,
Yeah.
which is right to work, which I hear some people not a fan of. I've heard some good things about it. It's really all depending on who you ask. But it does suck in that like you kind of just have to take what you get. You don't really have a place to ask for more.
Right.
It especially sucks when it comes to studio pay.
Ooh.
I've heard especially for like dubbing stuff, it's very low.
No.
It's not something you do for the money. You do it because it's what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things to definitely understand that if you just want to voice characters, you're gonna want to have like a backup plan for it or expand your horizons a bit, because as much as of a challenge as it is to find roles in voicing characters, it's just as much a challenge to actually support
Uh-huh.
yourself in the process. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm
I mean,
sure.
honestly, I'll probably always have a day job just because it'll make taxes easier.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I have a day job mainly because it does pay some at least decent money for me, as far as my particular circumstances work out. But it's
Mhm.
also just like I hate being bored, and I know that if I'm full time voice acting, I'm home all the time. It's going to be constantly recording auditions. As far as tales from like Sean Chiplock that I've heard, is it's a lot of
Yeah, a
time
large
recording
part of it is
auditions.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just like if I'm home all the time, I'm gonna have more motivation to like procrastinate, put things off, and say, "Oh, I'll do that in an hour." Oh crap, I gotta finish this thing, and then spend another hour doing that thing. And I know I'm gonna fall into that trap really quickly, and it'll also lead me to being really bored really quickly. So it's
Oh yeah.
I gotta keep myself busy somehow, and amazingly, I have 2 jobs that I work in. It's one of them is manufacturing, the other is customer service as a valet. And
Nice, nice.
it's all right. I've handled some cool cars. Like just yesterday, I got to handle one of those new Corvettes, the C8 Corvette, and it's kind
Ooh,
of cool.
the
I've
cock
heard
Corvette.
I think so. Yeah, I've heard somebody once describe it as like a spaceship on wheels because the
Wow.
interior is really. It's all focused on the driver's side, right? There is a passenger seat, but there's like nothing there. So it was kind of cool seeing that, and then I've also once in the last like 3 months, I think, handled an actual like Ferrari, and it was a somewhat recent model too, and that was weird.
Ooh. Joyride.
Yeah, I wish. It's and I one thing that's weird about Ferraris, you know how you can like just put your car into drive or reverse and you can just let off the pedal and it goes on its own at really slow pace.
I've never driven a Ferrari. How would I know this?
So most cars usually do that. Ferrari does not. You can put it in reverse or in drive. It doesn't go anywhere. You're not on the brake. Parking brake's not on, and it's still just it stays perfectly still. And I'm like, what the hell? I need to move this into a space. And I realized in order to go 5 miles an hour, I actually have to put on the gas.
Oh, it doesn't like just start.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
I
doesn't.
see what
Yeah,
you
it
mean. It
doesn't
doesn't
idle forward.
roll. I see.
It's weird. And it threw me off so bad. I must have stood in there looking like an idiot for 5 whole minutes trying to move this car. And I'm
It's
like,
like,
I don't want to ruin it.
this pleb, he's never driven a multi-million-dollar vehicle before, clearly.
And then I've only seen a Maybach, which is like high end luxury, but I've only seen it and there was a guy chauffeuring. So, yeah, but
Hmm.
working valet is interesting because you meet a lot of people, and I've had a lot of experience uh, trying to guess how to properly pronounce last names when people let me know about that. Because that's the
Oh
information I
boy.
usually have to get is their last name and their phone number because it's all an electronic system. And I have gotten some of these names like perfectly, and people have been blown away by that.
At least you're not working at Starbucks and you have to spell them out.
Ooh, I'd usually ask, but
What's your first and last name?
I'm Andrew William.
Okay,
I, I would hope that's easy enough.
Andre Wilhelm,
That I have not
and
had that yet.
My name is Jacob Wilson. There'll be a Jack Bo Wilsonif.
It'll be the craziest day if somehow you go to a Starbucks, you give them Jacob Wilson, and they somehow come back with John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
I mean, my friends call my I've been called Jason many times for some reason.
Jason? What?
Yes. I guess either I look like a Jason or I remind people of a Jason they know. There's also this one guy at my work whose name is Andrew. Oh wait, no, it's not Andrew, it's Logan. I get called Logan a couple times.
Oh my god.
I guess look, I get that we're both tall white boys with glasses, but come on. I got longer hair than him.
Oh man. See,
Which
at least they're not accidentally calling you Logan Paul, right?
oh god, if they did, I would just walk out. I'd be like that gif of Bugs Bunny that's just like, I'm out.
Oh my god. Uh
Looney Tunes show. Underrated. It didn't get enough love.
I don't know. I'm a little mixed on it because it's I've seen it a few episodes at least, and it's just for me it's usually hit or miss, and I
Mm.
think that usually comes down to it being more of a show written in the modern times, which is just I don't know. It's some
Kind
of
of
the jokes hit for
Seinfeldy.
me. I guess because
Hmm.
some jokes just don't sound very funny to me at all, and others just have me cracking up. And I don't know. I feel like
Yeah,
how do I
that
put
is the
it?
thing when comedies hit and miss.
Yeah, it's weird, especially nowadays. I think the thing I'm having an issue with is a lot of it is just super random jokes, right? And
Hmm.
I get when things are random, it can be funny if it has like the proper setup, right? Or
Right.
enough build up to make it worth it. But nowadays, it's just random shit. Like the other podcast I'm a part of, the Insanimators, we have one of our members who in a meeting just started laughing at a picture of a hammer being held in a hand. Why is this funny?
You clearly don't get the subtextual meta humor going on here. I think. I
I
don't know.
I don't know if that's the case. I hope I don't understand it because it's just weird. But I just like I can enjoy random humor if it's done right, but if that's all they're writing to, we're writing for.
Banana. You laughed at that random humor.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I guess I just don't do well when it's all random humor, and that just it seems like it's most at least majority random, and that just doesn't fit right with me, right?
I
Like,
do like comedy that has more wit to it. But one of my favorite jokes, I guess I'd say it would be random from Looney Tunes, was that I snore all the time and it's not a problem. Well, it's a problem for me, and I know just how to fix it permanently. I was standing on top of a tall building going to fix my snoring. Oh, right, snoring. Bugs was about to push Daffy off the roof. It was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's that kind of I think I just realized another one of the things that makes it very hit or miss for me is that it is a lot more like wit humor for me, or it is a
Yeah.
lot more wit humor, and that is what Looney Tunes is mostly known for. But it feels kind of like I guess I just want some of the slapstick that they used to have as well. I'm just too used to it.
It's
But
wit and physical humor.
yeah, and
It's a
I
good
get
combination.
that's one of the weird things about just being a fan of anything is when something changes, it doesn't it for some reason we as people don't sit very well with change, and I don't understand why, but we
Because
just
this
don't like
world
it.
is so crazy, we don't want more and more things to be unfamiliar and wild.
Yeah, it's because I get familiar is comfortable and comfortable is good, but sometimes change is actually supposed to be good as well. Um, like I remember I had a little bit of an issue with the original voice actor for Stolas and Hell of a Boss being replaced, but I started listening more
He was.
to, yeah, he was who was it? Brock Baker was the original voice actor for Stolas in the pilot, and then
Hmm.
he has to step down from it, and he gets replaced by Bryce Pinkham, I think is his name, Pinkman.
If you said Bryce Papenbrook, it would have been like, "Ben, dang, that's some versatility, Bryce."
He was actually just at SAC Anime this weekend.
Yeah, he was at Anime Frontier when I was there, and he had a long ass line. There was
Yeah.
actually something though about the way those booths were set up that I just thought like this is just so rude because some booths for the actors was like they were not that big and they only had one line.
Hmm.
Others had full on like panel size areas
Jesus.
with lines that weaved in and out because they were like, "Oh, we know these people are going to get a lot of people," and it's just
Oh.
made me feel bad for the other ones because it's like, "Oh, they don't expect much of me."
I don't know. I guess that's one of those things of like damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you give them the same bigger areas, there's a lot of people who are going to be waiting like into the lines of other people. People are going to get confused and accidentally wind up in a different line than they wanted. Or and
You
then
do have to quantify based on the roles because I
yeah,
mean, it was these really great actors and they had big roles to their name, but it was also alongside people like Chris Sabat and
yeah.
Zach Aguilar, who like are parts of pretty much every major franchise. So there's going to be fans from everything in their lines.
Yeah, but on the flip side, it's like if you give them all that space, and people are showing up, because a lot of people are going to be expected for one voice actor. You give another
Mhm.
voice actor that they're not expecting a lot of people for the same amount of space. That voice actor may look
Mhm.
at all that empty space in their line and probably feel the same way.
Yeah,
So it's like
that's something that I feel like when I'm gonna get, because it's gonna happen. When
that.
I'm invited to panels, I just have such a sinking feeling if all day I didn't have any intention.
It actually
But then that also means I would not be thinking about the fact that I was even there in the first place.
it kind of crossed my mind yesterday actually when I was there. Bryce Papenbrough actually he had a panel yesterday, And I
Uh-huh.
show up, and it's one of the I think it's one of the con like organizers or whatever. He's there just kind of filling the time for everybody that's showing up. Everybody's throwing out like really terrible jokes, and then Bryce shows up and we start asking questions, and I had
Mhm.
to take off in the middle because I needed to get a few things done before I head back home. Uh, and as
Yeah.
I'm picking up my things in the middle of the panel and I'm making my way towards the door, I start to wonder, what is his thought process when he's in the middle of answering a question and he sees some dweebus like me getting up in the middle of it and walking out the door? Does he think I'm like just bored with it or not liking his panel, or is he just like not care? He only sees that I'm like one of
Uh,
the 100 people that are in there.
oh, I had a moment like that recently because
Ooh.
I did my first ever panel, but I was surprised they even got. But it was even more surprising that they ended up putting me in their biggest room. Like this room is usually more reserved for like the voice actor group Q&As of like popular shows and things of similar nature and scope, but yet I was in there. And I was like, are they expecting a big crowd for this? Well, I didn't get a big crowd. They got
Mm.
like 10 people. And when the question time came and people walked out, the moment I said that, I was like, oh, well, that's nice.
It's
I think it stuck more because the group was smaller. But I don't think that would matter too much. Like depending on the size, you might not even notice. Honestly, they'd probably be like, "Oh, bathroom" or something like that. It's a smaller group, then it definitely hits you in the feels.
right. Yeah,
Like,
it definitely can be a very nerve-wracking thing just to think about. And like my journey into voice acting is just like barely started. I've been at it for a year and a half now, and just
mhm.
thinking about things like that just kind of makes me like, oh man, is that going to be worth it?
I'd say so. Because even though the group, I only had like 10 people in my group, I had such a good time with it, and I'm definitely going to be submitting to more panels in the future.
Hmm.
That was just something that like I didn't even know if I could do it, but I went and did it anyway. And I guess that's the thing. We worried so much about if we can do it, we just don't think to like go for it. I do think we have to remember though that it's not going to be guaranteed, and if it happens, there's no knowing of when it's going to happen. So you need to have patience with yourself and have patience with the process. Everyone's journey is different.
Hmm.
Excuse me. I see it in a lot of people who like they get dejected that their career is not moving as fast as others, and I'll admit sometimes it can get disheartening when you see someone who's been at this for a lot less time than you doing a lot more than you. But that's that person's journey. It's
Right.
different for everyone. And I've talked to some people who were like, "Oh, you think you waited a long time? Like I was at this for 8 years before I even got a bit part in something like that." And I certainly wasn't as known among other spheres.
Right.
Being online, there's a lot more opportunities for people to do things. Like, it used to be just like you had to do you had to go these routes because that's all that existed. Now there's just so many ways to find yourself in there. Which also means that a lot more people are doing it, and the market can suffer from oversaturation.
Yeah, that's true. It's because I only got started in August of 2020, and it was an interesting thing that I got started because a friend of mine just kind of randomly asked me if I wanted to go for a fan dub, and I said sure. Never heard back from that. I think the guy just fell off the face of the earth. But
Oh,
it's it definitely made me, after I recorded the audition, I sent it in. I'm just like, this is actually kind of fun, and I just started to go more into it. And there's been a few like small things that I've done, like fan projects using like Gotcha Life or Roblox or things like that. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this is kind of cool. And then for me, it started to like show that I was making a little bit of progress when I got a role as a basically as a supporting character in an audio drama for someone's student project. And I'm like,
Uh,
okay, this is pretty fun. And it made me a connection that got me a little bit more work later on that we actually just started on. Um, And
Yeah, it's lovely the connections you can get from something you don't expect.
oh yeah, it's very interesting. And deciding to do that, um, and then eventually after talking with Chris and Crystal, like I said, they got me onto wanting to do this thing a bit more to learn from other entertainers of all different kinds. And it's just kind of the thing of what are their experiences? What are the things that they have like done and really learned from? And a lot of them have actually shared some really interesting experiences of theirs. Kind of like I think one of their favorite examples they like to share, Crystal and Chris, was that
Mm.
somebody had actually slapped Chris across the face at a con
Ah!
because they didn't like the way he interpreted some character. And
Oh my god!
yeah, and I remember earlier in that episode, Crystal said that she chased somebody across a con at a shoot. And I'm like, is this that same con? Yeah, it was.
What con did they go to?
I don't know. I didn't ask, and I don't know if it's really important enough to them to worry about it. But it's.
I want to know, so I know, like, hey, like, would you like to come to this convention? Oh, was that where people get slapped with fishes?
Oh,
Is it the con for Nineveh?
it'd be hilarious to be able to go to go with a friend. Like if I went with Infamous from the Lorecast, and we just stop in the middle of the con, one of the big intersections in the vendor hall, right? And I just grab out of my bag this big like foam fish from right behind him and go right across his cheek. Baseball bat
Which
swing.
one? Which one?
Um, the one right. I think I'd aim for. Which way do I swing?
Oh, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, I think I'd go for the right side of his face based on the way I swing. Although I don't know if we are that type of jokesters, then probably that way as well. But I don't know.
Oh god.
Though if that were the case, instead of using a big fish, I would very likely use a foam buster sword or something.
You hit him in the butt with a sword.
Why not?
No comment. I
But
thought you were going to just say, like, I wouldn't even use the foam thing. I just use my hand.
uh, but cons can be fun, and it's interesting to meet a lot of different people. Like with the Insanimators, we promote indie creators, right? Well, I show up at the con, and they have a specific like section for indie people who do their own things, not just fan artists. And there were some really cool things to take a look at and know that they exist and it's out there to take a look at. So I'm going to be looking into those a little bit more. But then you look at other things people just kind of do from the fan arts alley. They do their own things at the site as well. Like I discovered that apparently one of the artists there helped in making a clown dating sim.
Was it called Love at First Honk?
No. In fact, it's actually called Pizarro Project Deep Dish.
That sounds more like it's a pizzeria dating sim.
I wish it. Yeah.
It's like, would you be the pepperoni?
Well,
it's like, would you if you have like people named pepperoni or something like that, and then everyone stays away from pineapple?
Well, no, that's the thing. I took a look at the website for it, right? Yeah, because it has a QR code on it. It's this clown that's got that bright, happy face, like I'm sure you're familiar with the KFC dating sim, right?
Oh yes,
they have this pose that you would expect to be in the KFC dating sim, but the clown has just got this bright, happy smile, holding out a hand with something in his hand. It's a QR code for it, right? I checked out the website, and it said, I don't remember the name of the town that it's supposed to take place in, but the main character's name you're playing as is named Anne, last name Chovy.
I'm out of here.
It's
like, someone reminds me of a joke I saw today. Harry Styles is just the name of an Ace Attorney character that's a barber.
Oh my god, I didn't think about that before now.
I did not think about the name Harry Styles. Yes, he totally could be a hairdresser. He had something to fall back on.
That's now that I think about it, that's gotta be a stage name.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you hear some names and it's like, I found out Gene Wilder, his name was not Gene Wilder.
This
Hey, let me actually look up what his name really. His name was Jerome Silberman.
the hell?
Yeah, his name wasn't Gene Wilder. It was Jerome Silberman.
Huh.
And I see why he went with Gene Wilder. Could you imagine if I said Jerome Silverman as Willy Wonka?
That
That's
that
not
doesn't
nearly
roll
as
off.
whimsical.
Yeah, it
That
doesn't roll off
sounds
the tongue.
that sounds like an accountant.
Oh man, it is definitely wild to see how this a lot of the voice
Wilder.
acting stuff works out though. It's I don't remember a lot of things that Gene Wilder has voice acted in, but then you think of people like Vincent Price, who's done a lot of really
Uh,
cool like live acting, but also a lot of really good voice acting.
I mean, he voiced Ratigan in The Great
Yeah.
Mouse Detective, which is probably the best Sherlock Holmes movie.
And then what is it? I remember one movie he did that probably didn't get a lot of attention is it had like 6 different names, but I think if you've heard of the Thief and the Cobbler,
Oh yeah,
he
there's a Thief
died.
and the Cobbler. Or it's called The Arabian Night.
Yeah,
All sorts. It's like in production hell for like 30 years, and then when it came out, it just was an Aladdin knockoff.
basically,
With
and it's like even Vincent Price himself had died long before it was ever finished, which
I'm
was
glad they at
weird.
least kept him because also he rhymed in the movie. I don't know why.
I don't
It
know.
was that movie. The final result of the movie was just such a weird mismatch of things, and
It really
also had
was.
really boring songs.
Yeah. But it does like throw you off in how many of those people do voice acting as well, and some of them you wouldn't even guess were the actual voice actors too. I mean,
Mark Hamill.
oh god, Mark Hamill. When I discovered that Mark Hamill was the Joker, it threw me off, and I'm like, Luke Skywalker is the Joker.
And he's so good.
He is, and then the other one that really threw me off, Skips from the regular show.
Skips in the regular show. Who is he?
Skips was the big ape dude. The one that was like a massive hippie, but always like
Wait, was that Mark Hamill?
yeah, that was voiced by Mark Hamill.
Damn.
It,
Oh, you know who else was voiced by Mark Hamill? Uh, Ozai.
I'm sorry, who?
Ozai from The Last Airbender.
Ozai. I don't
The
think I remember.
the Fire Lord.
Really?
The Fire Lord's full name was Fire Lord Ozai.
Shit.
That was a. He has a knack for playing terrifying characters, and it's a blend. And it's funny because when you think about it, his voices he can do very distinctive voices. But what I think stands out to me is how it's not always so much the voice as the character.
Right.
That's something I think people often neglect when it comes to voice acting. They think because voice you have to be able to do different types of voices, and that can definitely like help you. But what matters more is selling individual characters.
Right. It's. I mean, at the end of the day, voice acting is still acting.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing that's been said so many times.
Yeah. It's.
I think
I don't know.
it's important to iterate that there's more to a character than just their voice. There's things like their speech patterns, their inflection, their cadence, the tempo that they speak at. It's all things that you can do already without having to really manipulate how you naturally sound. Embrace your natural voice, because your natural voice is beautiful, baby.
The natural voice is always an interesting one. I can try many different ways of delivering. Like I can talk like I am now, delivering a character who's just kind of interested and excited about something, but it also does this sort of like, kind of casual conversations. Like, hey, how was the result of that concert you went to the other day? And they'll have the response, but then I can take the same voice and just sound like, so what are you looking at over there? Why are you giving me that look? Just sound very paranoid.
What are you looking at over there? Your mom?
This But it does it does throw you off when you start to discover a lot of these voices were done by somebody who already did a lot of other things. Like, um, I went to the con today at SAC Anime and I got an autograph from Kellen Goff. Um,
Mhm.
and it's interesting because you see all these big name characters from all these huge name anime shows, right? Um,
Yeah.
even in video games, like was it Funtime Freddy is the name of the character from Five Nights at Freddy's?
Funtime Freddy?
I think so.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I haven't played the games myself, but I know he was a part of Five Nights at Freddy's. He's been in My Hero Academia, JoJo, just so many different things. And
Hmm.
and then I listened to other things he's been a part of. Like one of my favorites is the sound designer for Has Been also ran his own audio drama called Magus Elgar, and it was really cool. But you wouldn't notice that it was Kellen voicing one of the major character or one of the major supporting characters, as well as another like three side characters throughout the whole thing. And when I heard the credits at the end of every episode that he was in, I go, "Wait, hold on, that was Kellen."
That's versatility, baby. That's
He
how I felt when I first heard about who Damon Mills was. You know, the first role I ever heard Damon in was, I think it was Victor's grandfather from Yuri on Ice. And if
Yuri
you
on
look at
Ice.
Damon, and if you look at Damon, and you listen to Victor's grandpa, Victor's grandpa, he sounds like an old Russian grandfather. It's a very rough, gruff voice. And you look at Damon Mills, and you're like, did you step out of a GQ ad? Who is this? And he's like in his mid-20s at the time,
Mm.
and he looks like nothing you'd expect. And that's just like the power of voice actors.
It definitely is because as we said, it's not just the voice, it's the delivery, and some of them you're just like, how the hell is he capable of sounding like this, like either deranged psycho or just like completely innocent, really happy guy when you look at him on a regular basis at like panels or whatever, being himself, they're just a complete fucking goofball.
And I love that so much. Like, I was at Anime Frontier recently. There was have you heard of the show Lava?
I don't think I have.
Loud, annoying, and very annoying. It's a show starring Ray Chase, Max Middleman, and Robbie Damon. These three big voice actors, and it's just them basically being an improv troupe, and it's glorious. Max beatboxes, does a damn good job of it too. And
Oh
everyone
man.
they do like these little games to get the audience involved. And I think they also have it on Twitch. But it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember seeing Josh Tomar in another podcast, and I had only kind of known him that he does voice acting, but I'd never really looked into him much.
Uh,
And then at the con today, I see a fan artist did a piece for the Oni plays, and I'm like, wait, hold on, I recognize this. And that's when I hear that it's basically they described Oni plays as like old school Newgrounds just coming back and just being improv shitheads playing games. And I'm like, that sounds amazing.
wow. It does sound amazing.
And I think that tends to be one of the most fun experiences to have when it comes to listening to all these people who do voice acting or directing or writing or whatever it could be. They're just shooting the shit and just kind of being themselves and doing all kinds of other fun things and not being like relegated to a script of some kind. It's you just see
Yeah.
how they are. I think
It's made
it's
me want to do improv. Like get into an improv troupe.
yeah.
But time.
Yeah, the time is always the big part, the big thing. That how we discussed like the financial limitations of voice acting. That's another one of the limitations. Is I think we touched on it. The amount of time you have for things. I know I'm gonna procrastinate like a motherfucker when if I eventually like find myself in voice acting alone financially and it works out. But I have all
I
that time
still got to
to.
audition.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna need to hire a manager to keep my ass on track.
Yourself an agent.
And it's sort of like, oh, do not give me that kind of power.
No, I cannot be trusted. I haven't made my bed in weeks.
Oh man, I'm trying to challenge myself to make sure I wash my bed sheets every week now because for a while I used to just completely forget it. For like 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I'm like, oh, that's not amazing. I need to do that now. And it's
Oh, I
just
thought you were gonna be like make your bed every day or something like that.
no. I almost never worry about actually making my bed because my room is my own space. I don't share it with anyone, and the people I live with tend to leave me to my business as I leave them to theirs.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I I do the same thing. No one comes into my room. No one's having dinner in my room. So I don't make my bed because I know I'm going to go to sleep in it later. I'm just like I don't feel the need if I'm going to undo it in a couple days. Or no, well, actually no, in a couple hours at this rate.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm usually out for the full 8 hours a day, or giving commuting traffic like 9, 10 hours a day, unless I'm doing something else. And it's usually I just come home, get on my computer, fuck around online, and then go to sleep, which is like 4 feet away from my desk. And it works out because I don't have to worry about other people coming in judging me and all that. But it's once that starts to change, things will actually change and start being more organized, more cleaned up, and regularly like taken care of. But that's just kind of me with
Stare
my
at you
yeah. That's
and
kind of me with my
question
current
you
limitations. Um,
and make you doubt yourself.
oh, well, I mean, they can't
The
make me
eyes
doubt
are
myself. I
judging.
already do that on my own.
Aw, baby, no.
Yeah, that's definitely another one of the things about it. I'm sure, especially like in the early stages of your voice acting career, you have had a lot of that like self doubt. Am I good enough to make this? And like, I probably wasn't good enough to make the role, and that's why I didn't get it. All kinds of things like that early on in the career when you started it.
Oh no. That
Really,
keeps up. That still goes on.
that still goes. Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's not something that I think ever goes away for anybody.
It's for me. It's sort of like I'm slowly at least getting used to it. Um, I'm sure it'll still pop up every now and then, but for right now, it's still sort of one of those things of like, am I getting enough feedback to really actually make myself good at this or better at least, or just kind of like, was it really rejection or selection in that particular case? And I never know because it's unfortunately if these casting directors were to respond to every single one of these auditions, especially if it's for those bigger projects, they'd be spending the next like week or two just sending out all those emails and response letters and all that. And that's just time they don't have to spend doing that.
Which I wish is something people understood. Guaranteed every time after I run a casting call, I get messages of people asking me for feedback and like, fam, I don't remember your audition. I had thousands to go through.
Yeah.
I don't remember yours specifically. If you didn't get it and you have a good acting setup, if you have like a good booth and you're not a bad actor, chances are you just didn't fit as well as we thought this person did. Nothing personal. It's nothing against you as a person or an actor. It's just a technical thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I see people wondering, like, they always ask me, like, what could I have done different to get the role? And I'm like, well, you didn't sound anything like our final pick, so completely alter your voice.
It definitely does become one of those like sort of anxiety inducing things, which is part of like I don't know if voice acting is for everyone. Like it goes to that the ending monologue of Ratatouille, right? I'm hoping people have seen it at this point. So spoiler alert for the
In
next
many
minute.
ways, the life of a critic is an easy one.
Yeah. But the whole point of that monologue, like I said, spoiler alert for the next minute if somebody hasn't somehow seen it by now.
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, the whole point of that ending monologue was that it's not that everyone can suddenly be a good cook. It's that anyone can be that good cook, and they can come from anywhere. It's not that everyone
Mhm.
does. It's just it can happen from anywhere. It's just kind of one of those things in that you can be a good voice actor. You're just probably not the exact fit that's needed for this role. That doesn't mean there's not other fits or other roles for you elsewhere.
It's not indicative of you as a person or even your skill if you didn't get the role.
Yeah.
It just means that this particular role was just not what we thought would fit you as well as this other person.
Yeah.
I put it this way a lot. Casting is a lot like trying to find the brightest bulb in a light bulb shop because usually sometimes it'll stand out to you, but for the most part it's just going to be a lot of light bulbs. And you have to find the one that to you shines the brightest, and often that has to come down to being nitpicky like, "Oh, this one is not the right color that I wanted. Oh, this one is a tungsten and I'm looking for fluorescent." Which is this, now that I think about it, this metaphor is breaking down somewhat. But you get the idea. I have to find ways to make it stand out to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like in another analogy, it's kind of like you have a job you need to do and you need the right tools for it. Not that people auditioning are tools, but the idea, the
Well, it's
principle is the
depending
same.
on the person. Some of them are definitely tools.
But it's that the right the right tool has the right purpose for the job, right? Like I work on
Uh,
my car, if I'm changing the oil on my car, it's one thing for me to take the cap off the engine so I can put the oil in, but get under the engine, you have to take the bolt off so you can let the oil drain out. I can't just take any socket and expect it to work. That socket could be too large, it could be too small, it won't fit. If it's too large, it's just going to leave a lot of play, and you're going to end up either damaging the bolt by stripping it and it can't turn at all. There's no grip to have,
I
or it
hate
just
when
won't
the
fit.
nails get stripped.
The what?
I hate when the nails and the screws and stuff get stripped.
Yeah, that's not fun. But it's like you can't use a small socket because it won't fit, of course. You're not going to turn anything with something that won't fit.
Mhm.
But if it's too large, it's just too much space and you can just ruin the bolt and you're not going to get the job done ever. And you have
Stop
to
putting
spend
the
more.
square peg in the round hole.
Yeah. So it's the same idea. You have all these people who audition, and there's so many, like, yeah, a lot of those voices sound exactly like what you need, but the way they deliver it is not the way that the character would usually behave. And some of
Mhm.
them do, but which one does it better? Which one is, like, much more on point with the exact delivery that's needed?
Hell,
And
sometimes we have a delivery that's nothing like we were looking for, but then it becomes everything we wanted.
yeah, that's another like wild thing about it is it's a constant reminder that you never know what you want until you get it.
It's true. No one knows what they want until they've got it.
Yeah.
If you just ask people what they want, they say they want the same things that they've always gotten, which
Hmm.
gets you nowhere. So you need to like see new things sometimes.
It's definitely
And in
why.
this case, it's hearing new tastes you would not have thought of.
Yeah, some people have said like go watch a lot of other TV shows or movies and listen to the actual acting, right? Like turn away from
Uh,
the screen and just listen to it like it's an audio drama or something like that, and just
and
listen to it,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
get more
and watch
ideas.
other parts of media than just like the things you're wanting to be in,
Yeah.
because you can learn a lot from the other mediums.
Oh yeah. Like one of the biggest bits of advice Chris had was spend 10 minutes a day reading out loud.
I gotta read.
Because it's what he brought up is that a lot of like the anime voice acting, it tends to be cold reads, which is
Yeah,
basically just okay. You showed up, we didn't give you a script beforehand, so now that you're here in the studio, here's a script. Read it right now. We're recording.
that's actually something that in a recent class I took, Jill Harris, she told me this.
Mm-hmm.
She told the class this. She gets auditions from people who they sound great, but they're too great. And
Really?
what that means is it sounds like someone has rehearsed this so many times to the point of artificiality.
Ah, okay. Now that
And
makes sense.
when you hear that, it just is like, well, I don't know if I don't think I can count on this person to give me the cold reads that sound like this.
Oh,
Because that's often what is needed is someone who can be good like on the spot doing the cold reads. Which is why she also recommends not spending too long on auditions. Like I hear people who say they spend like 10 minutes in audition. To me that always sounded like too much.
mm-hmm.
It also made me think like, oh, am I not putting as much care and attention into this? But then hearing that gave me a new perspective of like, oh no, that's just the way I decided to do it. I don't think about it too hard. I
Yeah.
think that if you think about it too much, you get in your head. Recently I had a really big audition and I was so like, oh, I want to get this perfect because I want this role and blah blah blah. But because of that, I started overthinking and I just couldn't get out how I wanted to do it.
Hmm.
So I ended up just I ended up just like taking a breath, telling myself it's not a big deal. It's just another role at the end of the day. And I eventually got out an audition I was satisfied with. And even though I had those thoughts in my head of like, oh, you could do this or this and that, I was like, if I don't send this now, I'm going to drive myself crazy. Plus, it'll just sound more and more like I'm thinking about it.
Right. It's I remember that being something that comes up every now and then with that because like I've had two voice acting coaches so far, and both of them have said don't go into like uh, don't really go into script readings with a plan of how to deliver it because you never know if that delivery will be subpar compared to another way you could have delivered it. Right? It could have carried another energy
Yeah,
that that could be what think of it like I like to think of it kind of like there's a bare minimum of what they need, and then if there's other ways you can deliver it that makes it more entertaining and more memorable and just like better for the character and what's trying to be told, then those better ways could just be waiting to be discovered. And trying to go in with that one plan keeps you too much on that single track for it.
and it makes it very hard for a director to direct you.
Yeah, that's definitely another one of those like things about it. Um, they've also said improv is an incredibly useful tool in voice acting.
You really want you really want like somebody who is directable. That's a big selling point for anybody because if you can make the director's job easier, they're going to want to work with you more, recommend you more,
Mhm.
which is why it is best to just like be open to any interpretation.
Yeah, and I think I remember somebody once saying like, "Oh, they're really easy to work with." No, that just means you're really easy to manipulate. I'm like, that's not how that works.
I that I hate how people can like take something and try to make it as cynical as possible just to make themselves sound smart.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that's honestly like I can't stand when people just like they find any way to twist it to make it seem dark or
yeah,
just this cynicism that perpetuates. I understand why people can get cynical, but when you take everything that could be good and turn it into cynical, you're just wanting other people to feel bad, and I can't stand that.
yeah. It's it's kind of one of those things like it's a part of understanding the job. It's you want people who are capable of delivering things in a in an entertaining way. That's kind of the whole point of it. It's the entertainment business. But there,
Also, how in the hell does being easy to direct translate to manipulation?
I
That
don't
just
know.
means you're being a good actor. Like,
Well, to
Jesus.
me, if they're complaining about that, they're probably not a very good actor because it's like
I, I,
if you're being told that the way you're delivering something is not
were you
very
Klaus fucking Kinski?
yeah, it's if it's not the way that the character is supposed to be emoted, if it's not the way that it doesn't fit the scene, something like that, then
Uh huh.
what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and the director is the one that's supposed to know. Trust in your director because
Yeah.
the director is wanting to make this the best product possible. Unless you got like Stephen Foster and Clanat or something.
Hmm. It's
That upset me when I found out that like a director who actively does not like the show they're working on, but
ooh,
like continued to do it. That was the thing that happened with Steven. That was just that's upsetting.
damn. Yeah, it's there was an interview that somebody did with Martin O'Donnell, right? The guy who did one of the two guys who did the music for Halo. At least
Uh
when Halo was still under Bungie and not 343. Uh,
yes.
he brought up that there was I don't know if it was during Halo or something else, but he brought up that Nolan North is a really good mimic voice actor. He'll apparently be in the
Yes.
booth and ask, "Okay, how do we want this delivered?" And the guy will say, "You want it delivered kind of like, this," and then he'll say, "Okay," and then read it exactly the way the guy had told him to do it, just in Nolan North's voice.
Uh
And he said that was like that just wasn't the way that it was supposed to be because all these different ways, what they do, at least what he did, he would do the recording, give it a few days, and then come back at it with fresh ears, and he would go, "Oh, that recording didn't sound very good at the time, but now that I'm back at it, this actually sounds a lot better than that one did."
mhm.
And it's kind of like if there's no variation in how something gets delivered, where's the actual entertainment? If you're gonna sound the same cadence, same way the entire project, the entire episode, or something like that,
Mhm.
I'm I'm more likely to get bored with something.
You sound more and more like you're reading, not acting.
Yeah, and that's not what we follow these voice actors for.
No, no, it's not.
And it's just it's it's fascinating that so many of them actually get it, but so many others tend to not. But I guess that's kind of what separates the ones that go to the cons a lot more from the ones that don't. I mean, I don't mean that in a disparaging way either. It's just some of that when you get to that point where your notoriety starts to really go up there, like Jill Harris, Kellen Goff, Max Middleman, people like them, they've been at it
Yeah.
for a while, and they've just
Mhm.
like they've let their reputation build up to where they're getting more of that consistent work, and they end up being trusted more for these bigger projects. But at the same
Mhm.
time, if you're just not doing things that are supposed to be the way that's supposed to be done, and doing it in a way that people can rely on you to make it fun and entertaining, then when someone comes along that can do it better, they're very likely to go with that other option. And
Actors are like tissues,
yeah.
expendable.
And I'm sure you've had to deal with that a number of times, being a casting director for how long?
I've been at it for about over 2 years now.
All right. So I'm sure
There
you've.
was one time that well, actually, no, there's been a couple times I had to recast roles.
Ooh.
A couple was because the actors just quit or like they weren't like meshing well with the project.
Mm.
Another one was a Predator.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was a fun time. Uh, what's the other one? There was a couple that I had to recast because the scope of the project changed. It was
Ooh.
originally supposed to be like a smaller project that like the writers and the people who were on the staff were working on it. But then when actual like voice actors who had the right equipment and stuff came along, they were like, "Oh, this does not mesh well now. We need to get new people."
Mm.
So I had to quickly find new actors for it.
Have you ever?
And another, huh?
Go ahead.
Okay, and another one. I think this is the final one I can think of. Was where the person's acting was kind of stiff, and they just weren't responding to the requests of the clients. So I had to get new people. So I've had to get like new cast members quite a few times.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that if you've ever found yourself having to deal with recasting because just the way they act after they get the role just isn't really what you expected when you got the audition.
How they act, it's not so much how they act in the part, it's how they act as a person. Because that's the other thing. If you are a good actor, that's great. This is something that resonates with me from the first class I ever took. I'd rather cast a good actor who is good to work with than a great actor who's a dick.
I get that.
Because I mean, yeah, you can act, but like if you're making the process more difficult, then why would I want to keep working you? Because there's other actors that are great and aren't dicks. Like, have you ever heard the story of Klaus Kinski?
I don't think I have.
I mentioned him before, but Klaus Kinski, there was a time when he was considered the greatest actor in the world. But he was such a, I don't even know how to describe him. I can't even say like a prima donna. He wasn't a diva. Diva almost has a charm to it. He was a maniac. What he did was he would basically go at war with directors.
Ooh.
He literally started fistfights with some. He would refuse to act. He would refuse to respond to if someone said action or cut. And if the director asked him to do something a different way, he would throw a hissy fit. Or again, throw hands. To the point that some people were actually saying, like on the sets in the movies that he worked with, can you kill him? Unironically, there was one of them, the movie was called Crawl Space, where he was being such a nuisance that one of the producers just straight up said, I'm going to kill him for the insurance money.
Oh, damn.
This was not unironic. He meant it. He had to be talked down from this. That's how serious he was about this. And there was another movie he filmed in the jungle where the tribal people that they were working with were like, it's not okay for someone to speak to another person that way. If you want, we'll kill him. That's why it's important that you are not a dick. I mean, I don't think that there's any instance in which voice actors were on the verge of getting killed because of the way they act, but it certainly is not helping their career or their chances by being difficult to work with in any capacity. Because guess what, honey? You're not shit. You're just shit.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it right
And
now.
you're just...
He died in 91. That was a long time ago. And he was cremated and ashes scattered to the Pacific Ocean, right? And it says in the next line after, this is it on his death section, right?
Oh, his obituary.
Of his 3 children, only his son Nikolai attended the funeral.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, this guy must have been a massive pain in the ass.
There was, I don't know what exactly he dealt with. I believe he might have dealt with schizophrenia, or he was diagnosed a psychopath.
Yeah,
something like that.
Right here,
which
medical records from the period. This is in 1950, because he apparently for 3 days stalked his theatrical sponsor and eventually tried to strangle her. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Medical records from the period listed a preliminary diagnosis of schizophrenia, but the conclusion was psychopathy, or antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, it's really a tragic story, the story of Klaus, because he was truly an amazing actor. Like, you watch his stuff, and you watch that movie Crawl Space, which many would consider like B-grade horror, and the acting is pretty B-grade too, but Klaus is just, he was a great actor. And it's a shame that like these great actors who are difficult to work with because of whatever capacity, and as such, you don't really hear much about them except in the classrooms as terms of don't be like this person.
Right.
That's what I hope to, at least at the very least, if I can't make it like that, I hope to never be the story of what not to be.
Yeah. It definitely kind of like rings up another thing that I like to try to like see where opinions usually are on it, in that one thing that I think is often forgotten very easily is that, whatever side of the screen you're on, everybody is still human. Everybody has their flaws. Some are better than others. Others are much more kind, but much more prone to like being abused. Others are much more
Yeah,
mean and prone to abuse. And it's just
yeah,
some of
that's
them,
something that
yeah.
I wish people would remember that we're all humans. We're not just our roles. So the things you say, the things you do, they have a big impact. I hate this whenever someone like they voice a character who's an asshole or or they're manipulative or they're this very problematic character,
Mm.
and the actor is the one that gets shit for it.
It was definitely one of those things Chris said in the middle of the stream with them is that he was actually afraid that people were going to think that Crystal was a psychopath because of Cherry Bomb.
I mean that happened with Octopimp for
Ooh.
for a role he played. I don't know if you remember that, but he played this stalker character. It was like the character was meant to be this abusive character, but Octopimp was getting this hate mail and I think some death threats even.
Ooh.
And it struck to a bigger problem in the field too, is that people don't want to see anyone that's bad in their media.
I don't know.
They don't want to.
That always felt like a counterintuitive idea to never show anything bad in cartoon shows or movies or anything like that because it's a
Mhm.
lot of those things are usually very like analogous to reality, you
And
know?
people were saying about the My Little Pony movie, like trigger warning, there's references to Nazism, but no, it's just like warlike imagery, not even specifically about Nazis. And it's just like,
Hmm.
ugh,
Yeah, no,
I
it's
don't, I don't want to like perpetuate the idea of like people are too sensitive or like SJW stuff. I hate when people bring that up because it
mm,
just feels like you're not wanting to address actual concerns. But there's definitely instances where I can say that people are just they're wanting to dictate too much what media they get and they're being overly critical of things that ultimately don't matter.
I
I blame
usually
cinema. I blame like cinema sins for that.
something like that. I don't know. I usually chalk it up to things like we just for me it tends to come down to more like we weren't really taught how to deal with confrontation very much. Whether it's like face to face confrontation, somebody has to be told to stop doing something, or just acknowledging that things
Yeah,
around us are bad. We want to believe our reality is meant to keep us safe. Nothing can harm us, but that's just kind of ignoring the idea that shit can go wrong at any moment.
yeah. I think I mean, it comes from that too, but I think it also comes from a lot of people who they weren't really given that chance
Right.
to learn these things or grow up either like from their environment or just what they experienced. And it can make it very difficult when stuff like that appears. And I don't think it necessarily means that people need to toughen up. I think that overall, what needs to happen is people need to discuss these things and come come to grips with these things in the way that they can.
Yeah. It's like I've mentioned before, I'm a believer in stoicism, which is basically it's not stoicism and apathy are not the same thing. Because apathy is
Mm,
the complete lack of emotion. You don't have any emotion at all. Where stoicism is more you do have emotion, but it's not the primary, dictating force of your decision making. It's basically it comes down to that reality is made up of things that you can control and that you cannot control. What's the point of worrying about things you can't control? Whereas
yeah,
first and foremost, of things you can control, always yourself. So it's basically like,
exactly.
yeah, how am I going to react to something that such and such person said? Well, I can tell them I'm not a fan of that, and I would appreciate if you not said that anymore. And if they
Hmm.
continue to be a dick about it, well, I'd tell them, okay,
Yeah,
it's either going to be you're getting out of here because I have the ability to kick you out, or I am
yeah.
going. I have those options.
You don't have to have stuff like that around you
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
but
Like
it's
I
a
have to. I've I see this a lot. And people say like they don't care, but then they get so vehement on
mm,
something, and it's like if you don't care, then shut up.
yeah. It's not to say that people can't be like upset about something. There's obviously there's reasons people are upset about whatever was said or whatever thing happened. But
Mhm.
what's it going to accomplish just telling them that they're dicks? If you're not going to tell me how to improve my behavior, or if you're not going to let me know what made you uncomfortable, I'm not learning anything and I'm not improving as a person.
That's something that had to tell I've had to end up telling people, like, "Hey, if I make you uncomfortable for whatever reason, do tell me, because I have autism,
Mm,
and as such, I have difficulty understanding these social cues or picking up on when someone is uncomfortable. I
definitely
have gotten a
understand
lot
that.
better about it. Huh?
I said I definitely understand that.
Yeah, and I have to just tell people, like, "Hey, if I'm acting in a way that makes you uncomfortable, or the things I say or things I do, please tell me, because I don't want you to be uncomfortable. Not only just because I don't want to do that to somebody, but
Mhm.
also because I'm an empath. So if you're uncomfortable because of me, I'm going to feel uncomfortable because you're uncomfortable, and then I'm
Mhm.
going to feel uncomfortable because I'm the one making you uncomfortable, and then I'm going to be uncomfortable because I'm the one doing all that. I'm just like, it's like
Yeah.
three times as uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's not
I'm
fun.
uncomfortable because of the situation. I'm uncomfortable because you are, and I'm uncomfortable because I'm doing that. So it's just unbearable for me.
Yeah.
So please just tell me,
It
and I can correct it.
yeah, I constantly want to try to make sure I'm doing things better. And there's like like has it ever actually worked out? Making sure that's a thing in whatever projects you've been in. Like, have you told people, "Hey, please double check me on something I'm doing because I don't want to make this a problematic situation"?
It's not really a thing that happens with what is it? It's not really a thing that happens with projects so much as it is sometimes I say that with projects, but I usually talk more professionally with my clients unless I become like really good friends with them.
Hmm.
It's usually the people in my life that are in my personal life that I have to be like this with, because my humor, I can admit, is a very it requires a certain kind of person to either, like, you have to know me really well to know where I'm coming from with it,
Hmm.
or you have to be okay with it already. So if you're not, then I know to not.
Right. But it's not to say it hasn't had anything. It's not to say it's never happened in the professional world, though, for you.
Well, it definitely helps to always like understand where you are with people and know that like it's a situation where you'll know the best way to communicate through working together and through time.
Right.
I mean, professionalism, I'd say, is a universal language, and just the way you present yourself. You want to do is you want to be the most approachable person you can be and open to any questions. Definitely don't like I've said this, I've seen it before that like especially like some of my clients in the past, they didn't know how to tell what was acceptable audio quality.
Hmm.
It's just something that I had to be aware that like, oh, it's obvious to me. I've done this for a long time, so I know what to listen for, but others don't. And I have to be like understanding and patient with that.
Right. It can
Just
definitely be sort of a challenge. It's like you want to be able to help other people feel comfortable enough to work with you on whatever things, or even just be around you to enjoy their time. But it's like you also want to make sure you're capable of keeping up with all of it.
mhm. I kind of had to work on internalizing my thoughts
Mm.
because I can have a tendency to speak my mind. Not in the way that like I think, oh, if I said this right now, then chaos ensues.
Hmm.
I wouldn't do that. But it's like it's a thing, especially at the place I work. I work in an escape room,
Oh.
which I love it.
I've heard
But
stories.
heard stories of escape rooms.
Yeah, there's another friend of mine that also works in an escape room. I don't know where, but it
Mhm.
they have stresses around it. But I can believe that escape rooms can be fun to work at.
They are very fun to work at. Can be very stressful too. The stressful thing for me often comes when, well, obviously, because I'm the one overlooking the game, I know how the game works and what you have to do.
Right.
So when I see people who are like not remembering things that I said, or not like looking for things, or they say like they did something that they didn't do, it just frustrates me. Because I want to just be like, no, you didn't. Here, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put your hands on the thing that you didn't do. I had one time where one of the games I ran required a vault.
Ooh.
And the vault, once you step inside, the alarms start going off. And that scared these two guests of mine that were inside. And they didn't want to go back in the vault, but they had to go in the vault because that was the next step.
Ooh.
You had to get something from within there to complete the next part of the puzzle so you could get to the end. And I kept giving them hints like that, but they were like, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, and they kept asking for hints. It's like, I can only give you so many hints. You have to do the thing.
Oh my god.
I promise you're not going to get hurt. But I was saying all this out loud, and I realize I can get very aggressive when it comes to it and the way I sound with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be. I want to be more patient with people. I just don't want things to reflect on me.
Right. It can definitely be one of those, like we brought it up earlier, that you're always doubting yourself, but it can also be in that sort of personal way, like, am I being too much? Am I being, like, is this just not the way I'm supposed to be going about it? And you start to question yourself on it, and even if you are doing it, something, like, responding to something in the correct way, quote-unquote, at least, you can still go, and I'm like, am I still being too much? Am I still being, basically a dickhead in their eyes? I don't want to be.
Yeah. So I just gotta say, please tell me if I am. I don't want to be.
Yeah. It
makes me.
It's always a very terrifying idea to think of if you're just being that guy and you don't mean to be.
Yeah, because I would hope no one intentionally wants to be.
And I usually.
And I'm sure there are, but I would hope that some wouldn't.
Yeah, I would usually if I feel like I'm probably not coming across clear enough, I usually ask them do you understand what I'm trying to say, right? And sometimes they'll go, oh yeah, I definitely understand what you're trying to say, and they were able to continue it. But other times they need me to clarify something that I was trying to say, and I go, okay, how do I do this right? And I ended up spending 5 minutes thinking about it and then stumbling over my own words again, trying to find another way to explain it. And it just goes how?
I don't know.
But it's definitely, it's just, for me, it's just another one of those challenges of life that we slowly get used to as we continue to grow.
Yeah, definitely say that. It's just something that over time you get better at. And oh my god, I just saw some sad news on Twitter. Bob Saget passed away.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Damn.
I did not. That's not something I expected.
65?
What? Hold on. What?
Lord.
That is not what I was expecting. This podcast has kind of just gone all over the rails, hasn't it?
It tends to be, but it's one of those things you're learning.
How did we get to the points that we got to?
I don't know. That tends to be how conversation goes.
I appreciate that in conversation, that you can somehow go from A to X and back to D and over all the way to Z.
Over, around, and then through.
And then under the castle.
Damn, that's... Holy crap, this news broke really quick. Everybody reported on it in the last minute.
I guess they were apparently, because he was found in a hotel, the police finalized the report.
Oh.
It made me think of when I saw some people who were like, oh yeah, TMC, your source is police. You're making up that stuff about Betty White.
Yeah, I personally, I would never trust TMZ, but anybody else who reports on, I'm like, okay, I guess there was something to it.
And then right after, everyone else did. That was just like,
yeah.
how?
I mean, it's at least it's something like live reaction to this news sort of thing.
I wanted her so bad to make it to 100.
She was 3 weeks away
from retirement. I
Like,
feel so bad because the moment I heard that she was like such and such so many like weeks away from her 100th birthday, it made me think of the running cliche in movies of the detective or the police chief that's like 2 weeks from retirement and then he dies in the movie.
yeah,
It's like that's what it felt like. She was 3 weeks from retirement.
I think it leads into one joke that I had heard. There's a radio station or a radio show I listened to in my area, and one of the jokes that got that made it onto the show because they like to read jokes that listeners send in, right? And one
Yeah.
joke that somebody sent in was at least there is one bit of good news out of Betty White's passing. It is the final and greatest Golden Girls reunion,
Oh,
and I was like, okay.
that actually makes me more sad than anything else.
I don't know. I kind of take it as like good and bad news with that. It's like, yeah, it's a little sad, but you know what? With how good friends they must have been during that show, I would think they're glad that Betty is finally joining them, and that she's really happy to see them again.
Yeah,
But
everyone that she worked with.
yeah, just try to find some silver lining, and that's usually how I go about trying to go through my day. Is like, okay, well, this didn't work out, but at least I'm able to like relax with my friends over here, and like this server, I can continue painting these, and it actually looks kind of nice. It's it's always like that. Take what you can and work with it. You know, back to that whole thing of things you can and can't control, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I've been able to temper myself at least to some extent, and I think it's working
Mm-hmm.
out. And it kind of ends up working its way into, into the voiceover thing again. Like another guest
Mm-hmm.
that showed up on that same radio show. He's a guy that does a lot of like uh he works in realty, right? He also does a lot of like loans and such. Working a lot in the financial side of owning a home. He used to be a child actor, and
Mm-hmm.
I would guess he took a lot of that charisma from those acting days. But he says another thing that really helped him out with in life in general is that with the amount of auditions that an actor will do and the amount of rejections of those that they'll get, it
Yeah.
really gave him that ability early on in life to be able to deal with rejection and deal with things just not working out. And I think that is one skill that I think voice acting really translates well into life is being able to deal with those. If you're the type of person that's capable of dealing with it, being able to deal with just something not working out, an addition that doesn't get you that role. Okay, well, I tried on that. I can say I made
Mm-hmm.
the effort. On to the next one. And
Remember to send. You gotta send and move on.
yeah,
I
fire
do
and
prefer
forget.
that. I prefer send and move on to fire and forget because fire and forget sounds very aggressive,
Yeah,
and you don't necessarily have to forget, but you have to be like content yourself with the knowledge that there's just no guarantees with any of them.
mm-hmm.
But if anything, because there's no guarantees, give yourself a little more free reign. Just do whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those interesting things. I've been a bit of a slump, or I've been in a bit of a slump lately of just not sending a lot of
I've been a
auditions in.
slump. I've just been slumping around.
But it's at some point I decided, I gotta get auditions in, and I finally sent one in, and it got me a role. Okay,
Oh yeah.
and I'm just like, okay, I'm starting to feel the groove to get back into it again, and it's one of those things that just happens, but it's fun, and I'm gearing myself up ready to send in another wave of like 10 auditions tonight, and then prepare myself to not hear about those auditions again
Oh yeah. Oh
until I
yeah. You
do the
got
next.
this. You can do it.
Yeah, until I send in the next set of 10, and maybe I'll hear back from one of those in whenever the casting
Mhm.
call closes. That's always been
And
one
then
of the fun parts about it is seeing casting calls that have a set deadline, and they actually do
yeah.
end there. But then others are just like, we're going until we find the right person. I'm like, oh wait, hold on, how long do I have then?
You. Oh, that's unclear. Always set a deadline. Which,
Yeah.
speaking of which, I need to tell people that the deadline for my latest casting call is up in 2 days.
Ooh.
So get your stuff in while you can.
And what would that project be?
Crossroads. It's a comic animation project about these people who go through different multiverses, or
Ooh.
not different multiverses, different dimensions, and through different like things like a Disney Pixar themed areas. Like one of them is based off of if Doofenshmirtz actually succeeded. And there's currently 2 original characters